Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. I'm your host Lauren Sidhu and I'm a Business Development Manager here at Enable, and I'm joined today by Neil. So hi Neil.
Good day.
If you want to tell us a bit about yourself for those who haven't maybe seen you on a previous webinar.
Yep, so as Lauren said, I'm Neil Jenkins. I'm Product Manager here at Enable, working with the rest of the product team on product strategy and the roadmap going forward, what direction the product's going to take, and analysing customer feedback and helping to make the products better for people to use.
Great, thank you Neil. So today we're talking about how to manage complex rebate deals effectively. So a recording of this will go up on our website when we're done, so you can pop back and have a look. And also don't forget to take a look at our previous webinars as well. But the agenda for today really is looking at complex deals, some examples, problems that they might cause, how automation could help, and tips for automation from Neil himself, and also the benefits of automation going forward. So if you have any questions as we go, please drop them in our Q&A. If we can't get to you now, we'll definitely answer them as soon as possible. So let's get started. So Neil, can you give us some examples of complex deals that we've seen from talking to customers?
We see a lot of different types of deal, from really simple examples, so what are sometimes referred to as loyalty rebates, where it can be as simple as a percentage off all products that you buy or that are sold. Where complexity tends to start to come in is where more specific behaviours are trying to be incentivised. So a particular product range is being kind of pushed by a manufacturer, or there's something new that's come out and so they're trying to get it out into the market. And with that, the complex deals, they can be really useful because they can allow you to target much more specific behaviours, but it is important that both parties still actually understand what's going on and can calculate it, because otherwise you just end up with a large amount of disputes when it comes to how much money actually needs to change hands. And so the complexity, it is a means to an end, but it needs to be balanced with the effectiveness and the understanding. A few ways that it tends to come in are either through targets, and so these can be quite simple volume targets sometimes, but it can get more complex where you might have targets to either sell or purchase one product that's going to earn you rebate on a different set, and that can be trickier to manage and just keep track of. Also, you can end up with strung rebates, or what we refer to as strung rebates, where you get these rebate chains where you might have an overarching rebate, but then you're going to have an extra deal on a specific product line, but that needs to take into account the earnings of the other deal or vice versa. And so that's another thing that can layer complexity on. And we see a lot of examples of that kind of thing where, the deal is trying to achieve a more specific purpose.
Yeah, and I guess as long as it's doing the job that it's meant to be there for, being complex, rather than just, kind of being complex but having no purpose in the end.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so what are some of the problems then that complex deals have caused, for example?
Really, it's around the management of them and just the linking them up to the data. So as they get more complex, the example of where you have your earning rebate on a different set of purchases to what's qualifying you for it, then making sure you're pulling all of that data through, if it is being done manually or in spreadsheets, it just introduces a lot more room for error and just adds a lot more admin onto the management of it. And similarly with the strung rebate example, where actually you might have a purchase that qualifies for one deal, and so you've recalculated your earnings there, but you need to be really careful that that's then following through and recalculating anything else that might depend on it. And so it just introduces a lot more room for error and a lot more time required to administer them, essentially.
Yeah, it sounds like you have to do a lot more checks, particularly on then if you're looking at a strung rebate, for example, and how one deal might affect another.
Yeah, completely. And when there are a lot of these deals, it can start to become quite unwieldy. If it is in spreadsheets, they can become themselves quite big and difficult to manage, and you run the risk of only key personnel really being comfortable going in and editing those. And so you can also end up with kind of dependencies on relatively small numbers of staff to actually confidently manage these things when they can be a large portion of revenue.
Yeah. So the problem's not necessarily then always kind of complex deals existing. It's more kind of how are they managed, and if that's done well, or kind of like you said, done by one person, which makes it a bit more difficult.
Yeah.
Okay. So how does automation change that? How can automation improve the way that complex deals are managed?
So with automation, it's about trying to eliminate that risk really, or reduce it as much as possible. So trying to take the weight off those key members of staff and really put automated processes and systems in place so that you know that reliably, as the data comes in, as the purchase data comes in and as new deals are agreed, they're going to be populated in such a way that they're almost going to look after themselves, and you can be confident that when data comes in, the correct calculations are all going to be triggered, and everything that needs to be taken into account is going to be, and you're not going to have any touch points that are missed. The added advantage of that, as well as reducing the risk, is then that frees up the time of the people who were previously having to do all of that maintenance to analyse the effectiveness of those deals and potentially help the negotiation teams get better deals by kind of focusing on the commercial outcomes rather than the data administration.
Yeah, it sounds like peace of mind as well, to be fair, of kind of not having that worry, are the figures correct? So
yeah, and from an audit and compliance perspective as well, being able to show those processes and systems can really help.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so Neil, do you have any tips for the way that people currently manage their deals in their current processes? What kind of automation tips would you give?
Yeah, so I think trying to make sure that your data feeds into however you're calculating are quite regular and kind of really well tested, because then once you know that the data coming in is fairly reliable, then you can work on your triggers. So what data is going to trigger what calculation to occur. That's where I think particularly in the strung rebate case, it's quite important to make sure you really lock down, okay, this deal's been recalculated and it's got these links to these other deals. So even though that piece of purchase or sales data isn't related to those deals, we still need to remember to trigger a calculation of those. I think that's one of the kind of big areas that it's quite easy to miss with spreadsheets. And then, yeah, once you've got that data in place, being able to point one calculation at different bits of data. So for the separate target and earnings piece, being able to confidently make sure that you are correctly taking into account the right data. But a lot of that comes from having that reliable kind of steady data coming in.
Okay, well, thank you for those tips, Neil. So what is the benefits then, I guess, of automation in something like a rebate management system? What does that provide?
With a rebate management system, what we mean by that is a deal-centric system. And so what that aims to provide is a system where it's much more intuitive to faithfully represent the deal itself. So what are the commercial outcomes? What has actually been agreed? And really shift the focus onto trying to, as faithfully as possible, put that into the system and then take a lot of the workload off linking that then to the underlying data. So then your transactions can come in, your product file can come in, your locations data can come in, and all of that can be knitted together with an already robust and heavily optimized process behind the scenes to make sure that all of the things mentioned before, like calculation order and making sure that everything's triggered correctly, is all then just taken care of, and it really allows the users to focus on representing the deals accurately and then looking at how those deals are performing. So where there are complex deals and the complexity is there for a reason, is that objective being achieved? So from a distributor point of view, are we earning what we thought we would earn? Or from a manufacturer's point of view, are we actually selling more of the products we were trying to incentivize by putting that in place?
Yeah, and I guess as we've mentioned before in previous webinars, Neil, just having a system that everyone can understand and log into, for example, commercial or finance, and actually understand the structure of the deal, even when it is complex, as opposed to maybe just being on one Excel doc that one individual understands. So if they do ever then leave the business, there's not that worry or risk, like you said.
Absolutely.
And when do you think then is the right time for people to consider automation? Obviously, it depends on each business, but what kind of are the factors that people should consider?
It comes down to a few factors. One is probably just how important rebate is to your business. So a lot of our customers, we see that rebate is a significant amount of their company's overall profit. And then how much are you reliant on these complex deals?
Yeah.
There are rebate deals that are very simple to manage. If
Yeah.
you've just agreed that it's going to be 3% off everything that you buy this year, then that doesn't necessarily need to be particularly tricky to accrue for or to manage. But where you do have a lot of these complex deals with key trading partners and you can't kind of negotiate the complexity away because either it's mandated by the other party or they really are serving a purpose, that's when I think it's very easy to start seeing a lot of time sink and resource going into administering the deals rather than necessarily getting the most out of them.
Yeah.
And what we see sometimes are actually some kind of very qualified people who are essentially doing data entry. And I think at that point it's an important consideration as to whether you can be better utilising that resource by letting a system handle that kind of data admin and letting them apply their skills to getting you a better commercial outcome.
Yeah. So thank you for that, Neil. So to conclude, really overall, we've spoken about complex deals, and for example, you were talking about some are to drive specific behaviour, some can kind of be more of a discount. And then we talked about kind of the problems that they might cause. So typically more around the way they're managed as opposed to having complex deals in the first place, more of those kind of manual processes, and how automation can change that and what it does provide in terms of just kind of not relying on key individuals, for example, using their resource better, like you said, and then kind of tips from you on how they could improve the way that they're currently doing it in their processes. And then as well, the benefits of having kind of a full automated system, something like a rebate management system, where, not only can it then be easier to communicate between teams, but also it's just deals are set up in a very clear way, and you're able to kind of manage those deals and use other members of staff for more data analytics, for example. And then we looked at kind of when people should consider automation, and you spoke about how it depends on the priorities, really. If rebates are really important to your business, and as much as it is for our current customers, a large amount of their profit, then probably the sooner the better, really. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the questions we've had coming in as we've been chatting. So, I guess the first one, quite relevant, Neil, is how does your system DealTrack deal with strung rebates?
Okay, in DealTrack, because it's this rebate management system, so it's got a very deal-centric approach, then when you set up one deal, we have what we call deduction deals.
Okay.
And so that's where you can explicitly link one deal to another. And what that will then do is the deal that you've selected as that deduction deal, whatever that deal earns, will automatically deduct that from the kind of qualifying spend for the deal that you're setting up.
Yeah.
So if you're setting up one deal and the qualifying spend is £1 million, but you've selected a deduction deal that's earned £100,000 already, then we'll string those together. And so actually for this deal, we'll calculate it as if you'd spent 900,000.
Yeah.
And so because you can represent both of those deals explicitly and get them all set up and try and make sure that they're faithfully representing what you're doing, we then also make that link quite explicit, and so it's very much a core part of the deal setup and very visible. So.
Yeah, it's probably easier to show you that on a demo, so just get in touch and we'll happily take you through that. Okay, our problem is the way deals are signed off, it can take a long time. It can be a lot of back and forth on emails. Are you able to help with this?
Okay, so with sign off, we see that a lot, particularly with complex deals, but even sometimes with simple ones where legal teams can be negotiating terms and conditions. Sign off can be quite a lengthy process and involve a lot of back and forth. Within our system, we do have several things to help with this. So we have, again, workflow is quite explicitly modeled within the system. So you can track what status something's at. We also have a relatively new suite of collaboration facilities that allow you to share what you've set up with your trading partners and invite them to comment on it and sign off, all within the system, so you can track all of that in one place instead of it being buried in people's email inboxes. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds a lot easier. So another one is we update our products on a weekly basis. Would we have to manually update product groups every time we add a new product?
With product groups, they're often a pretty key part of the rebate deal as to what's going to earn. We do allow within the system that you can manually go in and edit your products and their attributes and what group they're assigned to. So you can go in and manually type that. If you've only got a small number of changes, what we see more frequently is we do have a facility for automated imports, and so that can be done via a file upload. In that case, the frequency that we see, it really depends on the customer's needs, and we see customers who really are mostly concerned with it being right at, for example, month end when they need to do their bookkeeping, and so they might do it weekly or monthly. We also have customers where they're using DealTrack day to day to really keep an eye on how deals are doing and to monitor their accrual, and so they will do actually a daily feed of products, and any changes that have happened will come through daily. So it really depends on what the customer's requirements are, but we can accommodate whatever frequency with that, really.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So I think that's all we have time for on questions today, but do keep those coming in and we'll hopefully answer as many of those as possible and be in touch as soon as we can. But thank you for listening, really, and thank you, Neil, for your time.
Thank you,
I hope you found that interesting. Don't forget, a recording of this is going to go up on our website, and we've got our previous ones on there as well, so do take a look. And don't forget to follow us on our social media channels, so all the usual ones: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and keep up to date with what we're doing and hear from Neil and I guess the new product developments as we go forward. So thank you again for listening, take care, and I'll see you next time.